As parents, you need to know that there is a union that across British Columbia that is stacked against what you believe is best for your son or daughter. They have their own narrative. They push it out to the entire teaching staff in British Columbia.
And this district is going through unbelievable lengths to hide what they're teaching. I don't believe they're transparent because they're afraid.
Goodbye education and hello prideification. That's what's happening to kids within a British Columbian school district on Vancouver Island as students as young as 5 years old partake in a all-school pride parade through their community. Let's talk about it. Drea Humphrey here with Rebel News, and you see this flag? It was brought home to me by an 8-year-old in my family, whom I love dearly. Except she didn't make it. No, her parents decided to shield her from the gender-confusing pride worship that typically takes place during the first school days of Pride Month or under the Trudeau government Pride season, and kept her home, only to find out when she went back that her teacher had made this flag in the child's absence. That's right, she engaged in sex activism on behalf of the child and then encouraged her to bring it home. Of course, she's wise enough to bring it to me. And to put that into perspective, this is the same school district in the Lower Mainland, District 43, which last month forbid students from making Mother's Day crafts in the name of inclusivity. As sick as the story I just shared is, it pales in comparison to what is occurring in a municipality called Souk, BC. Depending on when you're watching this, the Souk School District 62 has likely already executed their Child Pride Parade, which was scheduled for June 8th. And while technically this isn't the district's first rodeo with rounding up innocent children to partake in the Pride Parade culture, which, if the kids get curious enough to Google, they'll often see family-friendly Pride parades usually involve kids seeing things they never should see. It does appear, though, that this is the first time citizens are ready to push back. Verified sources concerned about the systemic form of child grooming and, get this, the denying students who don't conform to it the ability to attend school and be educated if they don't participate in the parade have shared the following communications with me. The first, a note from Tess Valley, who's listed as Poirier Elementary's principal. It lists 5 schools, 3 of which are elementary schools, that will be participating in this sex parade, which begins at Journey School and ends at Phillips Park. And despite the district and staff preparing children for the Pride production well in advance, as seen here with Valley's request for teachers to get their classes to practice singing 80s LGBTQ rights song True Colors by Cyndi Lauper, it appears efforts were initially made, at least, to keep some parents in the dark about the Pride Parade for as long as possible. An excerpt from this notice to staff at John Muir Elementary reads, "We will not be sending permission forms home for this event, as our district's online consent covers this." Sneaky, sneaky. Now, that general online consent form is usually what parents fill out when they're first registering their child to the school, and it certainly gives no indication that it could later be used against the parents as some sort of excuse to not need their permission for their child to star in the district's sex parade. Now, lower down, after it says they won't be giving parents permission slips, it says they will be telling parents via an email, but just days prior to the parade, which is quite different than, your standard 1 week or more notice you get about a field trip. Now, thankfully, something made John Muir change its mind. It ended up sending out permission slips, as you see on the screen, a week in advance. But the same can't be said for all of the other schools participating. You see, almost immediately after I broke this story for the public on X while preparing this report for you, I had several parents tell me that they hadn't heard a peep from administration about the Child Pride Parade.
We were not given a permission slip that our kids would be participating in Pride Parade, or let alone performing in Pride Parade. And we were unaware that they were being educated to be a performance artist for sexual activity. It's not to my surprise that they have done this before and kind of entrapping parents into sexual education. They have had family days before where you're led to believe that it's just fun and games, go there, win some door prizes, get to know the community. But once we've shown up in the past, it was nothing but pride propaganda, nothing but ribbons, pride, any kind of dollar store toys, pride games. And by the time you're there, your children are really looking forward to having fun with everybody, and you're in between a rock and a hard space about dragging them home and making a big community scene, which is why I've taught my children the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. By that, I said you have a choice not to go along with what the school tells you. My children have decided to stay home because I've also taught them that if they go along with something they don't believe in, they'll regret it the rest of their lives. And I have some liberal children that are on the fence about some things that they kind of agree with and some of them they don't. I don't think they're that proud about what they're teaching, because if you're comfortable in what you're saying, you could tell anybody. And this district is going through unbelievable lengths to hide what they're teaching. I don't believe they're transparent because they're afraid.
Equally disturbing is what the schools had in place to accommodate students who couldn't or wouldn't partake in the celebration of sexual expression, which, according to John Muir principal Corey Mizette, was a big fat nothing. In a follow up email he sent to parents after his school sent out permission slips, Mizette told the parents in bold that if their child wasn't partaking in the Pride Parade, well, they better let the teacher know their child will be absent from school that day. I'm sorry, what? Absent? Let me get this straight. They can't go to school unless they partake in this parade. Well, what about the parents who can't afford to find a sitter on such short notice? Should they have to call in sick because their 5-year-old school is more passionate about teaching them sexuality in 60 different genders rather than how to read? Not to mention, what exactly is the inclusive message being taught to the students who are excluded from an education on this day because their tax-funded teachers won't see them? I spoke with an educator whose name and liking we are going to be keeping anonymous so they can keep their job, who explains how much of this type of discrimination is more common in BC schools than you think.
It seems like it's something that administrators and teachers really, really want. I don't think it's something that students really, really want. It's something that I think is an agenda that's being pushed. I think it's political in nature. I see the other side of things where students are, although usually respectful, kind of getting tired of always having to see things being pushed in that regard. A mandate march or parade. If you go to school, that seems like it would be a really bad idea, although I've seen it not just in some school district. It's in other school districts as well. There will be surprise parades where you march through the school. Everyone gets face painted in rainbows, whether you're part of LGBTQ or not, to show support for those that are. And there's a lot of questions that come home from kids that have to participate because it was a surprise parade, or were told not to go to attend school that day if they didn't want to attend. It seems like there should be an alternate option for students if they're not interested in participating. We make that available for almost every other situation that comes up in schools. There's always a place for students to go in schools. That's a whole point of public health. Sorry. Public schools. Is that there's a place for students to go, no matter what. So they'll have prizes, they'll have pizza parties, they'll have candy, those kind of things for people who attend. And those that don't attend, although I'm sure the invitation is open to all students. Those that don't attend obviously are looking in and seeing that there's a one group that is getting treated specially. Then there's another group of different origin, something. And they're getting something special. So then these kids that aren't getting either, they come home and they just feel like they're not special. But the reality is that all these kids are special and unique, just the way they are. It's not about what they dress up as. It's not about the color of the skin that makes them special. They're special because they're a human being. They're part of God's wonderful creation. and they have intrinsic value regardless of what color skin or what flag they decide to fly.
It's a dark time in society when teachers who often see children more hours a day than their parents have to hide their identity to spread the message that all children are equal and special. Yet here we are. Now, it would be a disservice to end this report right here. Instead, let's end with what, if anything, can be done about this. In addition to joining over 50,000 people who have already signed our petition at stopclassroomgrooming.com, you should keep in mind that 2024 is the year of BC's general election. Our current NDP leader, David Eby, is a staunch supporter of radical gender ideology in schools, so much so that he's repeatedly branded parents who oppose it as hateful bigots.
Our government will always stand up for you to make sure that you can be who you are and you can love who you love without fear. To everyone in BC, we need to stand up together against hate. And to those people out there who are promoting that hate, the adults targeting vulnerable kids, politicians promoting hate, shame on you. We're better than that in this province. And all of us are going to stand up against it.
In contrast, the province's two centre-right parties have pledged a different approach should they form government this fall. BC United leader Kevin Falcon told Rebel News that when it comes to SOGI 123, the sexual orientation gender ideology program that has paved the way for children who can't spell apple to march in pride parades and flip through sexually explicit books like the ones you're seeing on the screen, their party would focus on education principles that include transparency and involvement from parents. The BC Conservatives Party leader John Rusted has pledged a more clear plan against SOGI, and that is to remove it altogether and replace it with an anti-bullying policy that teaches children to be inclusive of others, even if they're different. But we can't put all of our faith in politicians now, can we? Much of this battle needs to be won by you and me, the parents and the people. So I leave you with advice that Helen Ward, the founder of Kids First Parent Association of Canada, and that anonymous teacher have for parents and others who have had enough of the sexual indoctrination of children in BC schools.
Parents or anybody can make a complaint to the professional bodies, the teacher's professional body or the principal's professional body or the superintendent's professional body if they feel that this action is taking advantage of the privileged position that the professionals have to advance a particular ideological interest. So I would encourage people to consider taking that legal action to make a formal complaint.
I would advise parents to be as involved as possible with what's going on in their school system. I would advise them to know what's happening at the school board level. Everything comes and happens because of school boards. So when those municipal elections come around, it is imperative to know who is being put into those positions of power. As parents, you need to know that there is a union that across British Columbia that is stacked against what you believe is best for your son or daughter. They have their own narrative. They push it out to the entire teaching staff in British Columbia. That has a large carry in terms of municipal elections. If every single teacher is swayed by the union, the BCCTF, in terms of which way to vote, how to vote, and that happens, we have emails that come out constantly telling members who not to vote for and who should you vote for. I don't understand the legalities around how that's possible, and yet churches are silenced on that same issue. I would advise parents to know what's happening in their schools, to surprise their kids at school with lunch dates, fun activities. And if there's something you disagree with happening at schools, especially in the month of June, you need to be aware of what's happening in the month of June. Pride Week is this week happening right now. You need to know what's happening, and if you can, make a fun day with your family. If you don't agree with what's happening in schools, take your kids out of school for the days that is happening. There's no better message that's sent than taking your kids out of school for the stuff you disagree with.
After conducting some of the interviews you saw in this report, I reached out to the district's superintendent, Paul Block, the school trustees, and even Principal Corey Mizette to give them an opportunity to explain themselves. I didn't hear back, but that doesn't mean they didn't respond. You see, despite marking in bold that children couldn't attend school unless they participated in the parade, Mizette quickly backpedaled right around the time he likely noticed my time-sensitive media inquiry, which included the following questions. What accommodations are being made for students who are unable or unwilling to attend the event to still go to school and be educated on Friday? And what is your response to parents who are concerned that their child is being excluded from education and fun because attending such an event conflicts with their religious and or political beliefs? Mizette must have panicked because he suddenly sent out this email, which I assume he thought I'd never see, to his staff, and it said, if any parents are asking for you to keep their children at the school on Friday rather than attend the parade, let them know that we can accommodate this. You don't need to send out a message, but if a parent contacts you, please pass on the message. Questions? Now, if my email can make that happen behind the scenes, imagine what our goal of 75,000 signatures on our petition against the sexual indoctrination of children in schools can do when I deliver it to BC's Education Minister Rachna Singh. So if you haven't done so already, please go to our special website called stopclassroomgrooming.com. Sign and share that petition far and wide. And if you appreciate these reports, consider chipping in a few bucks through donations while you're there to continue making them possible. Drea Humphrey for Rebel News.